Okay, so the first thing I want you guys to do is let's go ahead and just bring in a cube real quick to this new scene so that we have something to work with. I'm going to pull it up above the grid line a little bit. Okay, after you have a cube, let's add in a floor and a backdrop. That way when we're lighting our scene, we have something behind our object. So to add in a floor, go ahead and click on this polygon plane. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, if any of you guys can't see your shapes right now, let me show you how to get those back. So if your workspace is ever kind of messed up, it looks different than normal, you've lost some of your tools, come up here to the workspace drop down right here, and then go down to the bottom and click Reset Current Workspace. Okay, the only thing is that will lose your channel box layer editor, so you're going to have to reopen that in Windows. General editors, channel box layer editor. So if you want that back, you're going to have to reopen it and grab it in there. But that can reset that for you and hopefully bring back those shapes. Did that work for you? Okay, awesome. All right, so if you ever can't see your shapes, that's where you can reset. Okay, let's bring in a plane, polygonal plane. I'm going to open up my outliner so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, we're bringing in a plane, and let's go ahead and scale this up. So it is a good size. That's going to serve as our floor below our object. Okay. And then I want to duplicate this plane to make the back wall. So I'm going to do Control D on my keyboard to duplicate it, Control D. And you can see in your outliner that it made a copy. And then I'm going to use the rotate tool. And I'm going to go ahead and start just rotating this towards me, rotate it up. And come over here into your attribute editor. Go to P-plane 2, right? So in your attribute editor, come over here. And this is where you can adjust that rotate. Grab the one where it shows you as you're moving, the rotate is moving. And let's change this to 90. So it's a 90-degree angle. Okay, once you have it there, use the hotkey W to move this towards the back of your scene. Okay, so right now you should have a little cube, and then you have a floor and a backdrop. Yeah? And then I'm also going to use the W key to pull up this backdrop like that. Okay, that looks good. Now I've got lots of room to work with in my scene. Okay, next thing I want you guys to do is name some of these objects in your outliner. So let's name that bottom plane floor. And let's name that backdrop. Okay. All right. Now I want you guys to make a stack of cubes. So I'm going to scale this up a bit. Bring it up. I kind of want this bottom one to rest on that floor. And then I'm going to duplicate this cube, so Control D, use the W key to pull it up, and I'm going to rotate this a little bit. So I kind of want my stack to just have different rotations of cubes. Duplicate that up, and let's rotate it again. Essentially, what I'm making is just a stack of cubes right here that are all rotated in this direction, so that I have a couple different cool angles to look at, okay? So once you have a stack of 3 cubes, let's go ahead and name those as well in our outliner. And I'm going to click and drag this top one down to the bottom. This is my bottom cube, so I want it on the bottom in my outliner just so it's visually obvious. That's my top cube, so I'm going to move it to the top. And I'm going to rename this B cube for bottom cube, M cube for middle, and T cube for top cube. Okay, raise your hand if you need more time to catch up. Okay, raise your hand if you need to see any of these steps again. Which step? The boxes? So creating the cubes. So creating the cubes, again, you can just grab a cube from the top here And then let's bring it up in our scene, and you can scale it up. Okay, and then go ahead and duplicate it, Control D. Bring up another one, and let's rotate that, hotkey E to rotate it. That's what we're doing with the cubes, yeah? All right, does anyone need to see how I made the planes again? Yeah? Okay, so to make the planes, the backdrop, and the floor, I grabbed this right here, this polygonal plane, clicked on it, and I scaled it out to be my floor. Okay, so I scaled it to be large to create my floor. And then once I had my floor, I duplicated it, Control D, right? And I rotated it using hotkey E. And I just rotated it up in this direction. Okay, and then I came over here into my attribute editor, clicked on that plane, make sure the plane that you're rotating is the one that you have selected, and then I just changed that rotation value, the one that changes when you're rotating in this direction. You see how it changes this number right here? I changed that to 90 degrees. Okay, and then I just moved this backdrop to the back of my scene. Did that answer those questions for that one? A little bit slower on that one? Okay. Yeah, no, you're good. So again, we're going to go ahead and create a plane right up here in this poly modeling. Create a plane. Let's scale it out big. Okay. That's going to serve as your floor. Once you have your floor, go ahead and duplicate it, Control D to duplicate it. And then let's use hotkey E, the rotate tool. Hotkey E. And let's start rotating this up, yeah? And essentially what I'm doing is I'm rotating it in a direction to serve as the backdrop for my scene. Okay, and while you're in the rotate tool, come over here to the attribute editor, right? Attribute editor. And then click on this first one, this P plane 2. And this is where I'm going to change that rotation value. So just grab the rotation along one of these directions, not this outside because that'll rotate in every direction at once. So we just are grabbing along the one direction, and that's the value that we're going to change to 90 degrees, like that. And then you can go ahead and just move it to the back of your scene. Okay, and it's okay if it's not perfect, but essentially all you want here is a floor, a backdrop, and then a stack of 3 cubes. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If you don't have this all the way yet, you can keep adding those in, and there will be an opportunity to ask some more questions at the end if you guys get really stuck. But hopefully all of you guys have your screen that looks something like this. It's okay if you don't have all of your cubes yet, but ideally you want a stack of 3. And now, and you want to name those, right? Floor, backdrop, bottom cube, middle cube, top cube. Now we're going to bring in a camera. Okay, so there are a couple of different options for creating cameras in Maya. My favorite camera is the camera and aim camera. So if I go ahead and bring in this camera and aim right here, so I'm going to go up to create, top of my scene, come down to cameras, and I'm going to click on camera and aim. Okay, and then it'll come in, and it'll come in inside of your floor probably, or inside of your cubes. So go ahead and click on it in the outliner. Comes in as this camera group. So we have 2 parts of it, this camera and the camera aim. Go ahead and just grab the entire group, click on the entire group, and then let's use the move tool to bring this up so we can see it, up and forward outside of our cubes, yeah? So that's how you can see your camera. Again, to create a camera, if you guys missed that step, I went up here to create. At the top of my scene, create. I went down to cameras and I clicked on camera and aim. Camera and aim. Click on that. It'll come into your scene and you probably won't see it at first, but you'll see it in your outliner as this camera 1 group. And then you can use the move tools after you click on the entire group to move it up out of your floor and out of your cubes, yeah? That way you can see it in your scene. Okay, this part of the camera, this this little circle on the end, that is where your camera is looking, okay? That is the aim for your camera. When you're using the camera and aim group, it's always nice to put your little circle right in front of or like slightly inside of your objects, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and stick my aim in there, and I'm going to put it in the middle. I kind of like the middle of my objects. So the way that I edit the aim only is by opening up this camera 1 group, hit the plus sign in the outliner, right? And then I'm just clicking on that camera aim, and you can see I'm changing the position of this little circle, okay? So I want it to be in the center of my objects. To see the wireframe mode, like I just did, hotkey 4, hotkey 5 again to get back to the shaded view, yeah? Okay, now I want to change where my camera is. So click on camera 1, and now we're going to adjust it. So let's pull it up a little to be kind of even with our aim, and then let's move it back quite a bit, okay? And I'm just using the move tool, and I'm not moving the entire group, I'm just moving the camera, okay? So make sure you're just moving the camera. Again, to open up that group, I'm going to click the plus sign, click on our camera, and let's just change where that camera position is. And then I'm going to move my camera off to the side a little bit, not super far, but I kind of want this like angular view here with my camera. You can move it to the other side if you want, either way is fine. But we just want it slightly off-centered, okay? All right, once you're at this point, or raise your hand if you need more time to get to this point. Anyone else need more time? Okay, raise your hand if you need help getting to this point. Okay, I'm going to pause here real quick. If you guys are already caught up, go ahead and add a couple more cubes to your stack, yeah? But you only need a maximum of 3 total, but you can add more cubes as well. So, okay. Okay, guys, eyes up front. We're moving on here, okay? All right, next step is let's go to that 4 view window, right? Hit the space bar, go to your 4 different views. You can also click over here. That'll show you your 4 views. And I don't need my side view, so I'm going to go ahead and change my side view to be that camera, okay? So the way we're going to do that, after you hit the space bar, right, come into view for your side view, and you're going to go ahead and go down to cycle through cameras, okay? Cycle through cameras. Click on that, and then it'll pop in, and it should pop into camera 1 right away. If it hasn't, you can cycle through a couple more times until you get to camera 1, right? And this is a view of what it looks like for my camera. If I were to use my movement tools to move around in here, it's going to affect the position of my camera. So make sure if you're changing things in this camera view, you understand that you're also affecting the position of your camera. So again, to change this bottom side view to the camera view, you're going to go to cycle through cameras, view, cycle through cameras, until it goes to camera 1. Okay? So now I can look at what things look like through my camera. And I like how this looks, but I want to go ahead and extend my background planes so that they fill that entire camera space. So I'm going to go to scale. I'm clicking on both of my background planes. One, hold shift, click on the other, and I'm going to scale these out sideways. Okay, that way I don't have any gaps in my camera view, and the entire camera is filled in. Does that kind of make sense right there? The other thing you can do is you can extend it this direction and up and down if you need to. But basically you want your entire camera 1 view to have backdrop. Okay, we don't want any blank space behind. Okay, I'm going to come back into my perspective view. So once you've done that, you can come back into your perspective view. And then we're going to go ahead and start creating some lights. All right. Raise your hand if you guys need to see that last step again. Okay. So again, we hit the space bar. We go to this 4 views. You can click over here if you need to. And then we're going to come here to view, and we're choosing cycle through cameras until we get to our camera 1. Now we're looking through that camera view. Okay? Awesome. All right, we're gonna bring in our first light. So go up to File, up at the top where the file is, go to Create, and we're gonna come down to Lights, and we're going to choose Area Light, okay? So Create, Lights, Area Light. You'll see that pop in on your outliner and in your scene. And then let's go ahead and move this up and away from that center point so that we can see it. Okay, that is our area light. So again, I went to Create, Lights, and then I went to Area Light. Okay, and then after it comes in, use the move tools to move it out and away from that center origin point, because it usually comes in right about here, centered on your grid. So we're going to move that up and away so we can look at our lights. Okay guys, what is this little pointy thing right here? Yeah, the way the light goes, right? That's the direction that our light is pointing. So wherever your little pointy thing is, that's the direction that your light is going to be coming from. Okay? So you want that pointed at your scene, at your objects. Okay, let's look at our light attributes. So come back here to the attribute editor. Make sure you're clicking on your lights. Come into the attribute editor. Here is where we can see the intensity of our lights and the color of our lights. Let's go ahead and render a quick frame really quick. So up here at the top, you guys see this little video icon? You guys should be following along up front. You see these little like slate icons, yeah? Those are your quick render tools. So let's do render the current frame. Really quick, click on that. This little pop-up will come up. Down here is the loading time, so it's taking a while. And for you guys, it might be rendering your perspective view. So we're going to change it so it says camera shape 1 like mine. So in this little drop down at the top, change it to say camera shape 1. Okay, in this render view. Again, to get this render view open, I just clicked render the current frame. Okay, and then this popped up. Then we're going to change. Then we have to change our camera to camera shape 1, right? Our camera 1 camera. Okay. All right. As you can see, you see nothing, right? It's just dark. That's because the light came in at 1 intensity. Go ahead and change that intensity for that light. So you should be in your scene. You have your area light selected. Okay. We're going to change the intensity from our area light to 1000. Okay, enter, and then let's go ahead and render that frame again. Okay, so click on that same button up here, render the current frame, and as you can see, it comes in really bright. Make sure you're in your camera shape 1. That'll be your camera view. Okay, raise your hand if you guys are having troubles with this step or if you need some help catching up. Okay, a couple of you guys. All right, for the rest of you, go ahead and adjust, play with the intensity, see what happens when you render different intensities. I'm going to show you guys really quick how to save this image file in your cache so that you can compare it to other things. So right here at the bottom of this, everybody look, at the bottom of this Arnold render view, there's this little drop down. If you open that up, it opens up this panel. For you guys, it'll be empty because you haven't taken any snapshots yet. But you can go ahead and click the camera icon, and that will store the current snapshot in there as the next one, okay? So go ahead and store the current snapshot if you want, and then play with the intensity of the lights, render that current frame again, and store a couple snapshots. Take a look at the difference between those. Let's move on to the next step. I'll show you guys together. Some of you may have already gotten there, but go ahead and pause and take a look up here. All right, I am going to move this light. I think I want like 600 intensity. So I can render this again if I want. Let's see what 600 looks like. Oops. Enter. Let's render that again. Okay, maybe I want it a little less. So let's try 300. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do 450. I like that for my key lights. For you guys, it might be a little bit different. But yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do now is move this light into position. So if you go to your top view, hit the space bar. Let's go into our top view. Okay, I can see where that light is, right? It's right here. And I want to move this into position for my key light. Hey guys, no talking, please. I'm talking up front. Okay, so we're gonna move this light into position for our key lights. So I'm gonna move it over here. I'm in my top view right now. So I'm moving it over here, and then I wanna rotate it towards my scene. So I still want it to be looking at my scene. Okay, you can see in your perspective view what's going on. And I'm gonna rotate it down a little bit, and then I'm gonna pull this light up. All right, so kind of center your lights. You want your light to be kind of diagonally away from your objects, okay, in front of your objects. And then I'm going to go ahead and scale this up a little, and let's see what happens. So real quick, I'm going to render it again, okay, with the light in that new direction, okay. Takes a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to save that render. Hey guys, let's make sure we're paying attention up front, yeah? So I'm going to save that render with my little snapshot button. Okay, I like that. Let's see what happens to the shadow if I scale this light up. So I'm going to scale this light up quite a bit in my scene. And then I'm going to render it again, and let's see what happens. You see how it's a little bit softer of a shadow, right? We don't have as harsh of a direct light. So when you're scaling your light up, it's kind of like focusing a flashlight, right? If it's scaled down, then it's a direct beam, it's a sharper focus. If it's scaled up, then it's a wider beam and a softer focus, yeah? And you can tell the difference between them. If I save this one real quick, I can go back and I can see this is what it looks like with it scaled down and with it scaled up, okay? So I'm happy with where it's at scaled up. I'm going to add another light. You can do that a couple different ways. You can either just do create lights and bring in another area light, or you can duplicate this one. So I'm going to duplicate this one. So I'll do Control D, and I'm going to use my move tools to come up here into my top view and move it over here. And then I'm going to rotate it back in the direction of my scene again. Okay, so this is going to be my fill light. Again, I duplicated my key light, right? So I clicked on my key light, I did Control D on my keyboard to duplicate it, and then I moved it over. I looked at my top view and I moved it into position for my fill light. Okay, so something kind of like this, right? We have our key light right here and our fill lights. Okay, your fill light should be about half as intense as your key lights, ish. So I'm going to go ahead and change the intensity of this new one. Make sure you're in the correct light. I'm going to change it to about 250. Let's try that. And then I am going to render this again. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that fill light has brought in some more light from this direction. We're filling in some of those shadows. I'm letting it load. That's what's happening right now. Okay, and then I'm going to save it really quick so I can check the difference. So this is just with my key light, and this is with my key light and my fill light. You guys see how that's brought in some more light in this direction? Okay, so next, I'm going to bring in a backlight, okay? So I'm going to duplicate this light again. Let's duplicate my fill lights, Control D. And then I'm going to use my move tools to move it behind my object. I'm using my perspective view to do this, moving it behind my object. And then I'm going to rotate it so that the pointed part of the light is facing my object, right? So it's pointing in the direction of my object. And for this one, I'm going to, put it right about there, okay? And I duplicated my fill light. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like now if I render it. Oops. All right. So put your fill light into position, put your rim or your backlight into position, and then render it again and see what happens. Let's just be lunch. All right, let's look. Okay, so looks like it lit up some more of that floor back there. Did it affect my object very much? A little bit. As you can see when you zoom in, there's like a little bit more of a glow, right, coming from the back of my object. Okay, I kind of like where that's at, but I think I want to go ahead and move my key light up a little and rotate it down a little so I'm illuminating more of that top box. Okay, and then I'm going to move my backlight up a little too because I don't like what it was doing on the floor, so I'm moving that up a little. I'm just kind of messing with these, and I'm going to bring down the intensity of that backlight to 150. All right, now let's check what that looks like when we render it. Okay, and then I'm going to save this one too. Okay, so I moved my key light up a little. You can see the illumination from the top there, and I edited down that backlight. I want to make my key light a little bit more intense. I moved it further away from my object, so it's not getting quite the intensity I want it to. So I'm going to change my key light up. But essentially, you're just kind of playing with and adjusting these lights until you're happy with what it looks like in your scene. And then once you're done, once you're happy with what your lights look like, go ahead and rename them in your outliner. Make sure you've named them key light, fill light, and backlight. I'm going to save that one too. Okay, that's that kind of slight difference there for you. Let's rename it. This one's my key lights, fill lights, and my backlights. All right. Okay. Now I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I'm happy with how my render looks at this point. So I'm going to call this good for this lab for me. The only other thing that you guys will need to be doing and affecting in your 3D scene, the last thing that you guys will need is how to apply materials to your objects. So I'm going to show you guys that really quick, how to apply materials to your objects. You're welcome to follow along for this point as well. So let's go ahead and apply 3 different materials to these objects, and then let's save it and upload it and work on our 3D scene. So I'm going to start with my bottom cube. Right-click menu, so I've clicked on the cube. Right-click menu, I'm going to go down to Assign New Material. So again, have your bottom cube selected. Hold down right-click, go down to the bottom, Assign New Material. And I'm going to choose just a Lambert for this one. Okay, Lambert, that's kind of a matte material. And I'm going to change the color of it to red. Okay, I kind of want a red matte material here, okay? And then if I check my render view again, let's go ahead and render again and see what that looks like. Okay, so now I have that red Lambert material in there. Okay, next cube, let's assign a different material. So go down to Assign New Material. This time I want to do a blend. Okay, and if you can't see your attributes, you can go right-click on this. You can go to Material Attributes. Take a look. That'll pop up the attribute editor for you. Take a look at the attributes of your cube. So right-click menu, Assign New Material, and then after that, right-click menu down to Material Attributes. For this blend, I'm going to change the color. I'll do green this time. Okay. And blend is kind of a glossy, plasticky material. Let's take a look at what that looks like when I render it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Maybe I want to lighten this up a little bit. Make that change. Render that again. Okay. All right, and then the last one, Assign New Material. Let's make this one a Fong E material. That's quite a bit glossier, shinier than our Berlin even. And then I'm just going to use blue for this one. Okay. And let's look at what that looks like as well. Okay, and then I want to up my key light a little bit. It looks like my key light's kind of weak. So I'm going to change my key light intensity up a little bit. Okay, and I'll give it a minute to render. Okay. All right, and I'll save that snapshot. So that's what that looks like when you're adding materials, different materials to your objects. Go ahead and save this file. Again, we want to go to File and then Save Scene As. And make sure up here it's in your H drive. If it isn't, you can go to My Computer, double click onto the H drive, click into that 3D graphics folder that we made, Autodesk projects, and then let's call this one Maya Lab 5. Okay, Maya Lab 5, and then hit Save As. Then go ahead and upload this lab, and let's get working on our 3D scene.